Welcome back, basement dwellers. Once again, I am your host, Sam D. Man, and I'm thrilled to have you back here in the basement. This is the ultimate underground hub for everything nerdy. Pretty much, we're going to dive into the latest and greatest of nerd pop culture, whether it's classic or the hottest movies, the most binge-worthy TV shows, epic video games, or those collectible action figures that make us all giddy. If it's nerdy and it's making waves, you can bet we're talking about it. So buckle up as we go on this journey through captivating conversations and thrilling explorations. As the mastermind behind My Dad's Basement, I'm here to pretty much expose you guys to anything that you aren't aware of and get you kind of on the ball. And my guy here today, Luke Clayton from Prism, is one of those guys. Really quick before I let him introduce himself. He is a creator of content that I just stumbled upon, and as a Star Wars fan, I can honestly say he's a godsend. But before we get into that, Luke, thank you for showing up here, man. I appreciate you coming. I'm not lost in the irony of your name being Luke, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah,
but before we jump into the questions, though, just give me a brief introduction about yourself, man, and what you do over at Prism. And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Luke Clayton. I'm based out of Los Angeles, California. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, Jackson, Michigan as well. Moved out to Los Angeles about 4 or 5 years ago. And I've been working in entertainment. I am currently out of work due to the writer's strike and the SAG after strike as well. So I've had some downtime. So in that time, I thought I'd be a little bit proactive and tackle some IP that is near and dear to my heart, and the audience has responded. Prism is a content label that I conceptualized honestly a few years ago, but I never really did anything with it. I put out a few videos here and there, but I didn't really have the time or resources to put a lot of time, put a lot of effort behind it. And so once my job ended, I had the time to kind of put some more thought into it. And so this is sort of like Prism 2.0 kind of in some ways. And it's just a content label. It's just me for right now. It's still early days, but obviously, in the best case scenario, it'll continue to grow, and would love to see it become a viable commercial media label, hopefully.
I mean, in all honesty, man, after the stuff I've seen with what you've made with the What If episodes 7 through 9, like I said, I'm surprised they're not banging down your doors right now. Granted, as you said, dealing with the strike and everything.
I'm also not a WGA member yet, but I am in support of brothers and sisters in the WGA, and would love to join their ranks at some point in the future. But obviously, we got to get past these hurdles currently.
No, agreed. I'm a writer as well, so I'm fully in support of the strike as well. I mean, it's overdue for sure. So it's great to hear that that you also are a part of the movement as well, although you're not necessarily a part of the organization.
Yes.
But which it also now encourages a question, but I'll get to that later. But before we get into that, just really quick, man, I'm just super curious. What kind of Okay, so let me backtrack. The big question that I end up running into with any of my friends that I talk to, that I've shown your videos to, it always comes up really early, is how much of the story was the AI versus you?
You know what? I need to create a video to kind of like explain this and create a how it was made, kind of like a BTS video, because I do get this question a lot. So the unfortunate and very boring answer is that it is just me. So I leverage AI for imaging tools and audio tools, but not for writing tools. AI and like ChatGPT and Bard and those types of AI systems, in my opinion, are still relatively underdeveloped in terms of like creative thought. They're really good at like idea generation. So like if you want to say, if you were trying to write a story about, a bank robber or a heist, you might ask it, what are 10 ways that, you could rob a bank? And it could like come up with 10 ideas of how to do that. But if you were to ask it, I have these characters, and can you write me a story about, them robbing this bank? It will give you an answer and it will give you a scene, but the scenes tend to be a bit more bland, a bit more. They're not.
Yeah.
They very evidently lack the human touch. So I don't
Right.
find it to be a useful resource for on the writing front. I just trust my own intuition a little bit more than I will AI. But that's not to say that it won't get to that place eventually. Yeah, so the writing's all me, and I am supported by AI in imaging and audio.
Nice. Yeah, no, I have actually experimented with Chat GPT as well, and yeah, everything you're saying based on my experience is extremely true. Like it gives certain ideas, maybe certain things I wouldn't have thought of, but as far as actually like fleshing it out and giving it connecting tissue to this or that, like you said, as of right now, it is definitely incapable of that. So it's an interesting tool, but very important to note that, especially with the strike and everything going on, that there's no way that in the state that these machines are in now that they could possibly replace
Yeah,
anybody, especially with the quality of television and film that we've been getting for the past 100 years or so.
yeah, but it's important. Sorry to cut you off, but it is
No, go ahead.
important for them to start having those conversations now, because all the effects of that are very much the unknown. So to not at least attempt to try to create a framework in which human labor is protected, I think is important. But also allowing for innovation and for technology to aid in that process. So that's all.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all
no.
I'll talk. We don't need to talk about strike issues, and that's not. I know that's not why you're here. So we can,
No, but it's extremely relevant though, because like I said, even you saying you moved out to Hollywood and even lost your job because of everything that's going on, and you now using and kind of gaining, and I'll say gaining this fame, you know what I mean, because of this AI
micro
tool.
influencer. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, we can only hope, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but ultimately, like, honestly, man, like, as a fan, there's no way I can't see these studios pretty much like literally banging at your door, like, you know what I mean, coming to ask you to come and help work with them, man, because you did something with the sequel trilogy that I didn't even think was possible. Now you did have a couple of ideas that I also had when I was kind of revising in my head.
Sure.
Like the whole spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the whole like Ray and Ben, switching, from dark to light and that sort of like symmetry. I thought that was a
They
big
were
missed
building up
opportunity
to
in the
that in the
movies.
marketing. Like that was in the marketing
Exactly.
that they were like, oh, like, because I remember when the Last Jedi trailers came out and they have that moment where Kylo Ren, stretch holds his hand out. I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be also what's the profanity
Oh no,
profile
you're
here?
good.
Okay.
You're
So
fine. Yeah.
you were just like, oh shit, Ray's going to the dark side. So like that was I thought that would have been a really exciting direction personally. So I was really shocked when they chose not to go that way.
Yeah, no, that was definitely something that I thought they were going to go with too, because I mean, for everyone to kind of complain, even though Luke was pretty much almost the same thing, the Mary Sue kind of aspect. Oh, she's good at everything out of nowhere. I'm like, well, to make that interesting, make her a bad guy. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's one thing if she's just good and she's also a good guy. Like, you know what I mean, it's just kind of all the obstacles are kind of obsolete and she's just kind of going through the motions. But if the
Mhm.
heroes now have to go against this person that is, all powerful, okay, now
Unstoppable,
this
yeah.
is exactly. So my question is also what inspired you outside of having the time to do it, made you kind of want to go down this route to really visualize,
Yeah.
I guess what you had in mind for what the sequel trilogies could have been.
I think like a lot of fans, I think, we all kind of have these fantasies about like, well, if I was in the director's chair, if I was doing this, I would make these choices differently. And I think we do that, but not just with Star Wars, but with lots of different content, especially when the expectation doesn't really meet the hype, or excuse me, the result doesn't really meet the expectation.
Yeah.
You just have a tendency to daydream. And so this is something that I thought about for a while, and the impetus of the whole thing, which I need to kind of clarify in subsequent videos, is that the whole idea that kind of like kicked this whole thing off was I was really annoyed, or not annoyed, but like confused by the direction of like bringing Emperor Palpatine back. So I thought that sort of undermined a lot of what was
Yeah.
created before. And so I thought like, well, that's like, if you're gonna make that choice, like I'm like I understand it, but if you're gonna make that choice, you've got to make it a
Yeah,
banger.
you got to
Like
go full
why,
in. Yeah.
how? Like I mean, like I think in the crawl they just say like in the crawl of the third one or the ninth one they just say like the emperor's returned, and you're just like return like he's resurrected.
Right.
Like
How?
that's like a
Right.
biblical event. Like and then like everyone in the world is kind of like the emperor's back. Like back he didn't go to freaking Starbucks, like he
Right.
rose from the dead. Like that's like biblical shit. So like
Right. Right. Right.
it should have that scale and that like sense of dread. And I think they just, I think they, with the best of intentions, I think just missed that mark, I think.
Well, and that's something I've always I was saying it before the trilogy was finished, but even now that it's been finished, the actors and even other people involved with the making of the movie have gone on to say, like, on a public forum that they had no idea, like that, the heads had no idea what they were doing. There was no story. They didn't even know the ending of episode 9 until they were filming it, apparently. So
Right.
I've always thought that that was a big mistake, especially with anything, but especially something like Star Wars, because the entire, attraction to it is these epic stories with these great characters having these great moments, together in these relationships. And like you said, there were hints of things that they kind of had in mind that they wanted to do, but without any cohesive plan or any actual set plan. Like you had, JJ coming in and doing his thing, and obviously, kind of making the love letter to the original, A New Hope. And then Ryan
Mhm.
Johnson kind of came in and was like, yeah, none of that matters. And then
Right.
JJ
Right.
comes back and is like, no, it kind of matters. And then
Yeah.
you're left at the end like, what just happened? Like,
Yeah.
what just happened here? But I think you hit it right on the head too, man, because I definitely have fantasized and daydreamed about, what it could have been. But you have knocked it out the park. Like I said, I had the idea with Ray and Ben kind of switching sides, and how awesome it would be to see the dynamic, because I stuck a little more closely to the actual movies that they came out with when I had made my alterations. So I thought
Sure.
it would have been interesting to see Ben go back to the Resistance after having tortured Poe and, almost killed Finn. And so to
Mhm.
have their dynamic kind of be obviously, tense, and then obviously his, relationship with the Resistance itself being tense, because okay, yeah, you're Luke and Han's, Leia and Han's kid, but you've killed so many of our people. Like, I mean, now all of a sudden you just want
Right.
to welcome you back. But yeah, you went and took it a step beyond. Um, so with going into, I guess, the episode 7, your what if there, and then
Yeah.
obviously you have to plan ahead to do the 8 and 9. How much did you already kind of have in mind before you started, getting, I guess, the AI together to help you with the visuals and the audio?
Sure. I'm going to go back to your previous question to answer this question. Um, so when you're talking about like what kicked it off and everything, like the actual like video portion of it, uh, once I started playing with Midjourney a little bit, and I was getting like some favorable results. And once I started to get comfortable with that AI system, then I felt more comfortable thinking like, oh, I can put this to like, put an audio track underneath it and that kind of stuff. And then once I felt confident in that, then that's when I really kind of like decided to like go forward and do it. So to answer your second question about how far did I plan ahead and that kind of thing, um, pretty pretty far. There were definitely things that I was writing as I went along, but there were also like big pieces that I had planned out well in advance. Like you know, uh Anakin was always going to be part of the finale because I thought
Man, yeah, that part alone, Ben asking for his grandfather's help, that's what started the tears, bro. I was like, oh my God, like, I'm
sure.
not ready for that. Like, I was like, oh man, like, oh, like Jesus. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's yeah. Keep going, please, 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 please.
Yeah, so and I knew that had to be the case because if you're gonna bring Palpatine back, you have to bring Anakin back. There, you don't have a choice.
Right,
Like
right.
if I were to write my own like trilogy, like divorcing itself from all of the Disney stuff, I probably wouldn't have made the choice to bring the Emperor back. But because that
Okay.
was literally the thesis of like how can I inject something interesting into this. I was like, well,
Right,
you
right,
gotta bring Anakin back, because if he's the chosen one, quote unquote,
right,
like that's, you can't just have another party come in and deal with it without at least a lot of explanation about why and how, and maybe there was a misunderstanding or whatever. So that part I knew fairly early on. I knew that like the possession stuff was going to be a big part of it, because you couldn't resurrect Anakin either, because in my view, the whole idea between like the Sith and the Jedi and the dark and the light is, the light is very much about being in harmony with nature and being in harmony with life and with
right,
others.
right,
And Sith and dark sideness is all about control and kind of like um by whatever means exerting your control on nature and defying nature and those types of efforts. So
right,
it's only natural that the emperor would want to defy death and defy nature, and kind of like, the ultimate act of like, sacrilege against nature is like, well, I'm not going to go into the grave quietly.
right,
So Anakin and the light side couldn't like come back in resurrection and kind of do that kind of thing. So there had to be some element of either like possession or ghost or something like that that is still conforms to the canon that we all know.
Yeah, no, man. The possession of Luke's body blew my mind. But even when Ben tried to do it to Palpatine, man, it kind of like blew my mind, especially them kind of fighting on that like a thorough plane. And
Yeah.
all I could think is like, man, because you kind of hinted at Anakin, whispering to him while he was in the Star Forge. So I was like, oh yeah, no, Anakin would be the perfect person to warn him, like, dude, no, I tried to set the Emperor up also. It didn't
Hmm.
work. Like, you know what I mean? Like to
Right.
warn him, like, hey, like, don't try this. Like, it's
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
work how you think it is.
Yeah.
Um, but it played out perfect. Like, even then having Luke show up like with the young body, man, like another part where I was like, oh god, like how are they
That
doing
was,
this?
yeah. There were definitely moments when writing where I'm like, this is too crazy. Like people are definitely gonna bump up against some of this stuff. And like I said, like I don't know if I would have gone all the way like that far had it not been for like, once you invoke resurrection, kind of like all logic is kind of thrown out the window.
All
So I
bets
was
are
just kind of,
off.
yeah, all
Right,
bets are
right,
off.
right.
So I was just kind of like, we'll throw this out there. And the reason I made that choice was like, well, what would get Luke, what would get the Emperor interested in Luke again? Because he's old, he's broken, he's, like
Right, right,
what would entice him to bring to entertain that? And like if he could show I've beaten death, then that being the Emperor's kind of primary motivation. Because as much as he seeks power, he also seeks like control of his own
right,
destiny. Like he even leverages most of the resources of the Empire to extend his life and to do all those things. So has an obsession with cheating death ever since like
right,
the prequels, even like, so
right.
that's very true to his character. So dangling that carrot would almost be too much for him to like resist.
Yeah, no, man, and that's what I was saying. It was one of those moments, man, where I wasn't sure where you were going with it either. Like when he was on Dagobah, I'm like, yeah, like what could Luke possibly do now? And then when he shows up and D Rose, I was like, holy shit! Yeah, because then like honestly, like for the first like for episodes 7 and 8, I kind of had an idea of like, okay, like where's he going with it? Okay, I see the symmetry here. Like, okay, cool. I'm picking up on X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
But when it came to episode 9, even going into it, I was like, I have no idea where he's
Sure.
gonna go with this. Like, you know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
this is the end. Like, you know what I mean? So
Well,
you gotta go ahead.
I was gonna say that's why I started with the battle in the beginning with they're taking on the Forge, similar to like taking on the Death Star or Star Killer base, or the thing that they've tried to do dozens of times, take on the big bad machine, and they always win. And so like, wow, if this is the starting point and they lose, well then what the hell do we do now?
Right, right,
so,
right.
so,
Yeah.
so
No, and that was another part too, man, where I got super nostalgic as soon as I saw it happening, and then especially when they took down the Star Destroyer, and Poe was like, "Dude, like, don't worry about the Armada, like, get to the Forge."
yeah,
I was like, "Yeah," because that is one ship, like, you know what I mean, out of this entire infinite, like, you know what I mean, Armada, and like, I get it, like, the victory part of it, but that's if anything, man, the pacing and the storytelling, it was it's remarkable, man. Like I literally was
Thanks, man.
watching it. I was watching it as I was looking. I mean, granted, you do have pictures and audio and everything, but
Sure.
I could see it and I could feel it because as soon as I saw or you were describing the trench run, all I could think was like, oh man, this is like the Death Star, except just a million times more difficult. And then with the reveal, like, oh yeah, there is no vent, because even with Leia, even telling them like, dude, like, or Luke saying like, don't go. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I kept thinking like Poe's gonna die. I'm like, man, they are all going to die. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, you set it up so
I
good.
almost killed him off. I have to say, I was like, maybe he doesn't come back from this, but I chickened out.
Well, no, I mean, because going into it, I definitely thought he was gonna die too. Because I even was watching it with a friend of mine. I was like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna die." Because I'm like, "Well, somebody's gotta die, right?" Like, I mean, because that was one of the things in the original movies is that there really wasn't a lot of weight with anything going on because they'll be fine. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone's okay.
Sure.
But even then, you not killing him was a very pleasant surprise. I was as much as I like those kind of beats that kind of go off the beaten path of like, oh, everyone's fine. Having him come out on top of it, I was like, oh, okay. Like I honestly felt the relief of like, oh, nice.
I know.
Now, this is a bit of a divergent question. I just kind of came up with this one.
Yeah, sure.
What made you kind of commit to the Rey and Poe romance versus the already projected Finn and Rey romance? I did like how you hinted at it, and then they
Yeah.
were like, never mind. But you actually made it make sense of why it never came to fruition. So I like that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I thought that there had to be a romantic arc. I was actually really shocked that there wasn't one in the new trilogy because it's like a massive part of the franchise. Like
Yeah.
Leia and Han and Padme and Anakin and like even in like the Clone War, like it's just like a love and people coming together. Like that is sort of like a part of the Star Wars recipe, in my opinion. So the fact that they didn't even really broach it, and I guess they kind of, but like with Ben and Ray in the in the Disney franchise, but that never made any sense to me. I don't think it made sense to anybody. Like, them kind of making out at the end kind of was very like a head
It was
scratcher.
lazy. It was lazy. Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
lazy.
Well, I was just like, anyways, I could go on it for an hour on.
No. Like I said, I'm interested in your opinions. Go for it.
Yeah. So Poe and Finn and Rey to me just felt like a mirror of Luke, Han, and Leia in some respects. I mean, as chess pieces, they have different functions, but they, obviously it's like two guys and a girl in a spaceship. So it's like,
right.
All right. So there's symmetry. Yeah. So it's like there is symmetry there. And I think the thing with Finn is like obviously he in 8 like he would want to be with her and they have an understanding and sort of like this mutual trauma attached to their background, both being kind of survivors of this remnant force in different ways and things like that. And I so for that I could see his attraction towards her for those reasons. I think for her kind of coming out of that, I think probably wouldn't want to associate with that kind of history. And I don't know if there's like trauma bonding or something like that, but I think it would be difficult for her. And then the reason why Poe I thought was maybe a bit more appropriate was just because this is going to be a very juvenile answer, but like girls tend to go with the guys they're not supposed to be with.
Right.
Like, the guy who hates me, who like I killed his mentor, and like that's like the guy I'm gonna go for.
Right.
So,
but that makes it interesting, though.
Yeah, and then I thought that would give, and really, I had to give Poe some kind of an arc because I realized in like my interpretation, like he's not a heavily featured character. I mean, he does have a function, but I needed to give him a little bit more of something. But there's definitely, a what if or a world where her and Finn are together. Or like I would be interested in reading or seeing that fan fiction. I think you could definitely justify it either way. It was just like a personal choice, and I also, because they were both Jedi, or they were aspiring Jedi, at least Finn was, in my interpretation. because of the Jedi's sort of like tenuous relationship with having romantic
Right.
partnerships and that kind of thing. I thought this is just, I didn't put this in the thing at all,
Right.
but I was thinking, Luke would probably be okay with Jedi being with someone else, but not with another Jedi, because they're both warriors. They're both putting themselves at risk constantly.
Right.
It would be bad for the family unit if they would both perish in a battle or something like that. So that's sort of a bit of a lazy answer, but that's why I didn't go too deep into it. But
Right.
that to me just kind of made a little bit of sense, so I went with it.
No, and it does make sense. I mean, it would make sense, especially based on how you threw Mayor Jade in there in the last one. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And explaining that like they had history, but they've obviously had to kind of stay away from each other. And that explanation would explain that, because I've
Right.
seen how this can go. I don't want
Right.
that to happen. So no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the music and the audio and everything. So explain how you kind of work that out, because I
Mhm.
mean, even throughout the entire series, but definitely in a lot of the big battles in episode 9, but honestly, throughout the entire series,
Mhm.
um, it's the score and the sound effects, man. You honestly are pretty much like you're in a movie.
Great.
Why is
That
my
good.
camera
That's
acting
the
weird? There
that's
we
the
go.
hope.
Um,
Um, so is the question, what's the question?
well, yeah, I mean, it's part, that helps with the immersion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, so how
So
did you, I guess, how were you able to kind of, I guess, mix it all down and
yeah,
get it all to be cohesive, where it actually sounds and feels like the movie, and especially with the narration going over top of that as well?
sure. So I think you'll notice from each one the audio kind of becomes a bigger player in the piece. Like in the first one,
Yeah.
there's no under track. So the reason for that is simply because I was lazy. I wrote 7 in a weekend. Like it was like Memorial Day weekend, and I had some downtime, and I knew my job was coming to an end. So I'm like, I'm gonna just freaking write. This has been on my mind. I want to try it. Like, and so yeah. So I wrote it out, and then I mid-journeyed the hell out of it over the course of like 6 or 7 days, and it's shorter. So I was able to get that whole video done in about a week. And I thought about doing audio, but at the time I had 30 subscribers. So I was like, I don't want to pour a month's worth of work into something that probably nobody's going to see. Let alone did I know 300,000 people later. I was but so having know what I know now, I probably would have put a little bit more effort into the audio in the first one. The thing that I also put in the John Williams scores in the first 2 also, and I almost put him in the third one. And that was a decision that I was really struggling with, because um, the John Williams score is obviously integral to Star Wars. You're in a Star Wars
Right.
movie because of the score. Like it's
Yeah.
just like you hear those
Yeah.
horns come
It's a
on, and
character of its own.
it's a
Hmm.
character of its own. And I thought, if I were to do a cut without, because I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, well, I should try to monetize this and whatnot. But I was also like, no, I want the audience to have this phenomenal experience. And if I leave John Williams out of it, that's an incomplete experience. Um,
Right. Right.
so I opted to try to lead audience first with the first couple, and monetization was never even like a thought in my head in those first, those early days also, because like I was so far away from that threshold. Um so yeah, so I put that in, and then the second one came out, and I just kept adding audio layers. I was just like, well, how can I make this more immersive? I'm limited to audio and images. Like, how can I make both of those as great as possible? So I just went online. I was just ripping blaster bolts and cranks and yanks and buzzes from any which place I could. And I think the second one, even though it's not quite as viral as the first one, I think is a better product because of it. Because it's longer, but it's a fuller experience. And then when I got to the ninth one, you can also cut me off too if these answers are too long.
Oh no, honestly, man, I am engrossed. Like I'm sitting here, like yeah, like no,
Yeah.
but Go for it, man.
And then
I'm deep into it, man.
and then when I came to the ninth one, I just the audience responses was so positive at that point, and I was just really excited, and I just was curious, like I don't know, I really wanted to put the John Williams stuff in there, but I was also just deeply curious if people would notice. So
Right.
I I I made the decision to try to do it royalty free, and so I did that with the intention of like I will release a John Williams score version. Like if for people who want to watch that version, they can, which I haven't released yet, but I will do that. So that way you'll have that complete experience if you
Right.
want it. But obviously, as you know, a content creator trying to turn this hobby into a business, I would love to, you know, try to derive some revenue from that. Even though it would be small, it would be validating. Um,
Right.
so yeah, so
Trust
I
me.
cut it
I know.
together, and nobody seemed to notice. I haven't gotten one comment still that's like, "Where's the John Williams score at?" If anything, everyone's been really positive on the music and have really loved the beats to it, and like they hit the emotional chords correctly, and it's Star Wars to them. So that's great. So yeah, so
Yeah, no, for the record, I have officially stated this is my canon for the sequel trilogy now. Like, I won't
you're not the
acknowledge the
you're
Disney
not the
stuff.
only one.
Like this, whenever I'm showing someone the sequel trilogy, I'm like, all right, here's what you're gonna watch. Because it was so good, man. Like you said, like the little stuff, like to the point. I think even in episode 7, there's one of the pictures where Ray has like old Leia's face, and like I do
Yeah,
think it's a funny picture. But
sure.
honestly, that is probably the only moment where I'm kind of like taken out of it in any way, shape, or form, because I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that looks a little weird. But even
yeah,
still, it's one of those things. Other people have mentioned it after me. I'm like, no, like just go with it. Like, you know what I mean, just use that as a base plate. Like, you know what I mean, and just
yeah,
use
yeah.
that as to visualize it. And yeah, that is my secret trilogy. You
Thanks,
mentioned about
man.
the kind of overflux of the people, I guess the followers.
Mm,
How quickly did that happen? Like from you posting that what if episode 7 video, the
yeah,
full one, like you know what I mean, to going from the 30 followers, like you said, to like 300K. Like about how long did
yeah,
that take, and what was that like, or what's it been like for you?
yeah. I mean, it's been amazing. It's been probably one of the better accomplishments of my creative career, really, in some respects. Um, like I don't claim to know how the YouTube algorithm works or how, you know, any of this stuff works. The only thing that I know, because I've heard people who are prominent on the platform talk about it, is that you've got to think audience first, that the algorithm predominantly tracks, you know, the algorithm watches everything that you as a viewer watch, and so it's watching that more than the people who are publishing stuff.
Right,
so
right,
so when you're a publisher, it's trying to figure out what audience to bring to that content, if any. So I knew that Star Wars is obviously, you know, a world renowned label, IP. So
hmm
I knew that it would probably get some attention. I thought, and again, I can't underscore this enough. Like I had 29 followers, most of which were friends and family,
right,
when I put this out initially, and so my top line idea of like who might see this was like maybe a couple thousand, you know, maybe 2 or 3
right,
thousand people will watch it. I might get to 100 subscribers. That'd be amazing, right? That would have been a
right, right,
win to me. And so I released it, and then um the first day it got like 200 views. And I was like, this is amazing. Like I've made
right,
it.
right.
This is great. Like these are people I don't know that are responding to my content, that are, whatever. And then it like cracked 1,000. I'm like, holy shit. Like that's 1,000 people.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people undervalue. They're like, oh, my thing only got like 1,000 or 10,000 views or whatever. I'm like, that's 10,000 people. Like
people.
that. Like, do you understand how much 10,000 people is? Like, I think I even put
Yeah,
it in my community tab. Like Like 10,000 people is literally the size of like Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles. It's like,
Right.
actually I think that one's like 7,000. So it's even bigger than that. So once I crossed 10,000 views like on that video, I'm like, I packed out a theater. Like I packed out like a big giant theater. And then once it
Yeah.
hit like 70,000, I'm like, that's as big as SoFi Stadium. That's
Right.
that's a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
And so it was slow and fast, like, because every day it was more people. And then, but it was like, in a couple hundreds, and it just kept kind of like trickling in, through the door. But a couple hundred people a day turned into like a couple thousand people a day. Then once it got to 10,000 people a day, which was like, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I released it, I was like, this is crazy. And so, yeah, it was amazing. It is amazing. I get to refresh my thing and get to see comments every couple hours of like, oh man, this is great. You've like saved my childhood, like whatever. And it's like, it's very sweet. Like it's very, I know this is a franchise people care a lot about. And most people are coming to this not because of me, but because they love Star Wars. They're looking and searching for content that that they value and that's important to them, because it's important to them. It's important to me. And so I don't want to disappoint those people, which is why, each subsequent episode kind of took a little longer to kind of roll out, because it was like, I want to do a good job. Like the first one, I just kind of threw together, put it out there. And then, each time I put more and more effort into it. And so as you can see, like, the AI gets better, the images of the faces that all start matching. Like that was not by accident. It was a lot of extra work, but it was like, that's great. I would love to, we'll see how sophisticated these tools get, but I would like to go in and remaster them, remaster at least the first one and re-release it with like the proper face match and more background underlay and stuff like that. So I don't know when or how. It's either I do that now and just kind of leave that alone, or I wait until like AI video gets sophisticated enough that we can start playing with actual like scenes and actual like that kind of thing. I don't know how far down the pipe that is, but I don't think it's that far. I think maybe another 24 months, and I think we might be there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the technology is growing exponentially with this AI stuff, man. Between, like I said, even just like Chat GPT and that kind of learning as everyone is using it, the pictures, and because as you said, you can see the progression. Obviously, like I said, you're putting more work into it, but then also the AI is just learning. Like,
but this video would have been this video series would have been impossible a year ago. You couldn't have made it.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's definitely a testament to it's a testament to the ability of what these tools can be used for and how they can be used properly. Because like I said, I understand, obviously, nobody wants to lose their job to machines. Like, I mean, that is probably the worst thing that could possibly happen to anyone. And especially something like the entertainment industry, because as you said, the human touch and element is so key to storytelling, to be able to tap into emotions and all kinds of layers of how that goes with the relationships. Like you said, the technology with machines and AI isn't quite there to have that be a point where you as a person or we as people can truly identify with that. What was I gonna say to you? I had a question, I lost it because I rambled too long.
That's okay, it'll come back around.
But right. But as a fan of the franchise, at what point were you kind of like amazed with your finished product? Because I do it all the time. Not, I won't say all the time, but I do it sometimes when I do make something I think is really good. I will go back and watch it a few times and be like, oh man, this is good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if it wasn't me, I would like this. Like, you know what I mean? So at what point were you like, yeah, this is good?
a bit of a ego pump. It was when I was doing the finale to the ninth one, when I had Anakin come back and all that. And once I put like the Padme scene in there, I was like, fuck, people are gonna love this. And then
no, that was another one, man. It broke me, man. It broke me.
It broke a lot of people. Talk about that moment. But like that, and then the final scene, and like Luke kind of giving his end monologue. And then I put in some of like the callbacks to the prequels and that kind of stuff.
Yes,
Like
yes.
I got choked up rewatching it, and I was like, and I'm the freaking dumbass who made it, so I was just like, this it means so much to me. It means so much to a lot of people. I mean, it's like people say like, oh, it's just a movie and whatnot, and to some respect, I understand it, but I don't think people. There's certain stories, there's like, that are just timeless, and this
Yeah,
is one of them, for especially for a lot of young men and a lot of people who are lost and looking for adventure in their life and looking for a
yeah,
calling. This is very important franchise to a lot of people, and a lot of guys, and it's important to respect that.
yeah. You
So
know,
so
and
yeah,
that,
so once I made those two scenes, and I felt like this is where we're gonna leave things, I was just like, I think people will be down with this. Like, I know there's some like crazy like wonky force stuff and some possession, but I'm like, if they can get to the end, they'll see why it was all worth it. And so yeah.
I mean, to be totally honest with you, man, I think I mean, obviously, as you made these because of how you and how a lot of people felt about the sequel trilogy, but
Sure.
you even starting off at the level that you did, honestly, man, like I don't want to say you could have done anything, but like I was hooked like from the beginning because I'm like, man, this is already so much better. And I mentioned it to you, and I've mentioned
Yeah.
it to pretty much everybody I've told. I watched What If Episode 7 was good, like multiple times. And the first
Sure.
two times I watched it, especially towards the end, like I definitely teared up.
Okay. Which
And
part?
towards like, geez, with the first one, it
Was
was
it a
definitely
scene, or was it just like the whole piece?
no. So there definitely, I want to say there was a moment. No, you know what it was? It was when, right after, right around like when Han got killed,
Yeah.
is what kind of like did it for me, and it was because me seeing it how you did it, I was like, wow, like he actually gave this like meaning and purpose, like you know what I mean, like it
Yeah.
actually has weight to it, like you know what I mean, where it's like, oh shit, like and I feel that, and
Yeah.
it kind of reminded me of Anakin Solo dying in the old extended universe stuff because, like you said in the narration, Luke could save him, like you know what I mean, but like you know what I mean, the
Right.
mission is more important, like you know what I mean. So it's like you have to make the choice. And as we saw with Harrison Ford with his relationship with the character, he was ready
Yeah.
for him to go anyway. Like you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
if you're gonna do it, that's fine, but you gotta have it mean something. And you also
Yeah.
got the original crew back together, which was I'm not sure how they botched that in the movies, but that was
Yeah.
something I was super happy to see. I'm like, oh, we got them like at a dinner table, like you know what I mean? Like this is
Right.
awesome. Like um and then
I thought
but
it
with
would have
episode
been sorry.
no, go for it. Go.
I just no, I just thought like the dinner table scene, like I thought it would be funny, if I were to see this in a theater and I would see all these characters getting together and talking about like the old days, and we all know what that means. But to the new characters, they're like, it'd be like your grandpa talking about, well, when I was in Nam or whatever,
Right,
and you'd
right,
be like,
right.
dude, grandpa, like, shut, like, come on, like, we're
Right,
hungry,
right, right, right. Right.
and, but it would have a lot of meaning to the audience. And so, like, I just thought, like, yeah, like, I would love to see that. And then, like, kind of like reminiscing about like the old times and stuff, but then preparing for like the next chapter also. So that to me was
Right.
like the obvious starting point.
Right. I mean, but and you also do a great job of highlighting that with Ben, of him not really understanding and being more empathetic towards the First Order, which is
Yeah,
also a great way to kind of project what his character arc is going to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
because like I said, I had the same idea. So as soon as he said at the dinner table, I was like, oh man, like, all right, I know where this is going. Like, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, he's going to turn at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but I know that in the with part 9, I literally had to wipe my face, man, like with the amount of tears I had, like
I'm
to the point
sorry.
I had a, no, it's fine. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed at all.
I cried
A
too.
friend of mine was sitting on the couch, like not next to me, but on the other couch, like next to that couch, and I'm like
Yeah.
leaning over all the way down like this, so she can't
Uh,
see me like crying.
my eyes
But
are
like,
sweating.
no, but literally, like as soon as the thing was over, man, like because the thing is in that last, the battle and everything that's happening in there, and then like you said in Luke's speech afterwards, like it's almost nonstop as far as the emotions. The only time I honestly felt like you kind of let up is in that the epilogue before Luke gives his speech. That's kind of the only time in that last act where you kind of get a like, you know what I mean? Because and even then, you know what I mean, when he starts giving the speech, I'm like, man, not only are you showing the clips of the, you know what I mean, and referencing the you know, the originals and the prequels, but then you connect it to the audience, like, you know, by saying like maybe somewhere in a galaxy far, far away. And I was like, oh man, I'm like, I can't take it. I'm like, because this is literally that's what Star Wars is all about. And to be able, what really did it to me, outside of it just being so good, because I cried for a few different reasons. It was just so good that it was just happy tears. Because what we got in the movies was just so lazily done. Like, you know what I mean? You could tell that there wasn't a lot of passion put into it. And like you said, as people who have been fans, go for it.
I'll just say, like, I'm hesitant to be overly critical, because these are overly critical in the sense that, like, these are people that I would love to work with in the future, and I understand, like, they made an attempt, you know, to deliver a product. I don't think that it was a good product consumer fit. And, you know, as much as I have feelings about it, like, I don't know, like, I would love to sit down with JJ Abrams and like those guys someday. Like, they're masters. And like, yeah, there's a part of me that's like upset, like a little annoyed and like upset, but like, I don't know. I know there's like a lot of like Star Wars bashing and Kennedy bashing and stuff like that, and I just don't want to be a part of that conversation. I'm not interested in it. I think
no.
But anyways,
I
that's
agree.
all. That's all I'll
say.
That's all I'll say about that. But I understand where the fans are coming
agree.
from. I understand. Like, that's why I made it. I'm part of that community, and I get it. But I'm trying. Yeah, that's all.
No, but I also agree with what you're saying as well. I mean, I think anybody, especially who's on the writer aspect, you know what I mean, like as far as being able to do that and being able to understand the material, of course we would all love to, you know, work with the big wigs and actually get something, you know, legitimately, you know, canonly, you know, made like by Disney. So and it's not to necessarily like bash them or necessarily the people involved. It's obviously because there are a lot of moving parts. There's never just one person you can point the finger at when something goes wrong, when you know, fans aren't happy. But yeah, no, I fully agree though. And I guess that leads me to my next question. We're gonna wrap it up in like the next like 10 minutes or so. But as far as where you, I guess you're sitting at now, with the amount of, I guess, attention that you're getting, and could possibly get, you know, further down the road, or I guess, how do you feel about where Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are kind of taking it with their Mandoverse stuff and like the Ahsoka? How do you feel about that compared to, like, you know, what you're doing and what has been done?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if my opinion would be too valuable. I mean, I think they're obviously both very talented guys. I think, you know, as far as the product's concerned, like, I haven't seen Ahsoka yet. I plan to, but I haven't seen it yet. Mandalorian, I think we've also never seen Star Wars on TV before. That's a whole new thing. I mean, people talk about like, oh, well, it's this and that. Like, it literally like just started, like just happened. Like, we never had Star Wars in that format before. I love season 1 and 2. I mean, I think that they're great.
Yeah.
I think people, you know, there's some, you know, seems to be a consensus on season 3. So
I'm not a part of that consensus. I actually enjoyed season 3. Like,
okay, that's fine. Good. Like, you know, that's fine. Yeah. Like, and we're all gonna have different opinions on stuff. That's the fun of this franchise and any franchise. Like, have your opinion. There are people who love the new Star Wars movies. Like, they're like,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't understand it, but I mean, like, go with God. We're all God's children. Like, you know, it's okay. It's fine. Like, some people, like, you know, every once in a while, you know, I'll get somebody in the comments be like, they were awesome. Like, you don't, like, you're just like trying to hang on to this, like go live a life or something. I'm just like, dude, like, more power to you. Like, don't spend time with me. If you love that stuff, like,
go
for it. This is for me and people like me who thought that there was, hopefully, you know, there might have been some other options out there in terms of where
some missed opportunities for sure.
Some missed opportunities, yeah. So that's all it is. But it's funny. I love the passion though, and I love the engagement. So bring on the hate. I don't care.
well, a slight spoiler. I will say this: compared to what you did, especially with the whole thing, because you bringing in the Star Forge and Revan and all of that, like, to me, I KOTOR was one of my. It probably is my favorite Star Wars game, to be
Oh, it's the
honest. With you. Like
best.
I love Force Unleashed and you know what I mean, like Jedi, Fallen Order. Those are great.
Yeah.
However,
KOTOR is one of the best Star Wars stories there
hands
is.
down, hands down.
Like,
I'm playing it on my phone as we speak. Like I literally have my
yeah.
file. I think I'm on. I just got the Korriban. I always save that as the last planet I go to
Oh
before
yeah,
the big.
great.
But this is obviously like my millionth time playing it, and then I just realized that they have it on the Switch for like $10. So I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I should
nice.
probably buy that now. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but I'm waiting for the remake to come out, or the remaster, because God, if they
We
were
all
to
are.
bump it up, man, like whoo.
Yeah,
But yeah,
PS5
no,
level. That'd be dope.
man. But yeah, your references to Old Republic, they actually started doing that in the Mandoverse. They definitely are doing it in Ahsoka. Like they haven't stated directly
Yeah,
anything about Revan or like the Forge or anything like that, but they have mentioned
yeah.
the unknown regions.
Right.
They had a star map that looks just like the ones from KOTOR.
Yeah.
And then Balin Skull, who's played by Ray Stevenson, he mentioned that like, oh, like, yeah, we've heard fairy tales and stories about unknown regions back at the academy when I was a kid. I'm like, well, there's only
Right.
one person that they would have heard stories about going there, and that's Revan the Redeemed. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's
Yeah.
oh, that was another moment, by the way. Like I love that, having Keanu show up as Revan, because obviously that's the fan cast we all want to see. So
Of course, yeah. So that was all done for very deliberately for a couple of reasons. So one, just being a fan of that era, I think it's cool. It's a cool era to explore, and bringing it to the present and the new franchise, I think, is an exciting take. It serves a narrative function because one of the annoying pieces, or one of the frustrating pieces of the Disney Star Wars, is like, how the hell does the First Order and the Final Order or whatever amass these incomparable resources so
right,
fast? When we all left Return of the Jedi thinking they're defeated,
everything
we're
was
gonna go
done.
build the
Yeah,
Republic, it's over, right? And so, like, if you're gonna bring them back in a meaningful way, the Star Forge is the perfect foil to say, like, this is how they did it. They can literally build an infinite army, like, within months or
within
however, yeah,
right,
super
exactly.
quickly. And so it's like, oh, like that makes a ton of sense. So it's like, that to me is just like obvious. Then that was one of the first choices I made, actually, was like,
Yeah,
we
no,
got to bring
no,
it
yeah,
in. We got to
that's
bring it in.
that's always been something that I thought was a missed opportunity, not necessarily with the sequel trilogies, but as far as any kind of live action or modern storytelling with Star Wars, is a lot of the elements of the Old Republic. Like, and even now, like, I would love to see a Revan story, but even now, what I would do is, instead of telling the KOTOR story, tell us the Mandalorian War. Like, let us see him go
Yeah.
from being a Jedi to leaving and taking the people with him. Like, you know what I mean, and that sort of thing. Like, that's the story, and then you end it with right where the first game starts. Like, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
that's where you end it
So
right there.
I'm working on a video right now that is going to be a,
Nice.
what if Disney Star Wars was awesome kind of thing. And it's not a narrative. It's just basically an explanation. And it kind of goes in exactly what you're talking about, which is like, how can we explore the continuity of Star Wars? How would you push this narrative forward, if you were to deliver more movies and more things, right? And I laid out a framework that I think they just started. I developed this framework months ago, but I think they're starting to release press stuff that they are going to start dabbling into this. But basically, look at the whole Star Wars timeline, as like a biblical event, right? It's like the Book of the Wills is like what
Right.
George Lucas initially intended all this to be. So it's the Book of the Wills, right? And so within the book, just like if you look at like the Quran or the Bible or whatever, it's divided up into books, right? It's divided up into like subsections.
Right.
So this is like the Imperial Saga. This is one piece, but then open up the epochs to these other eras, right? So you can
Right.
have
Right.
Star Wars Origins, you can have Star Wars, Old Republic, you can have Star Wars High Republic, you can
Republic.
have and so one of the reasons why I brought Revan in, outside of just like it's awesome, is it opens up that story, right? It's like,
Right.
for
Right.
those who are Fairweather fans, like, who's this guy, right? And so
Right.
then that allows you to do a press release in a few months, be like, we're doing Knights of the Old Republic, like it's coming out,
Right.
right? And then you could do that one just like you did the original franchise, right? You could start with Knights of the Old Republic and then go into the years after the Knights of the Old Republic with Keanu Reeves, who's almost 60 now. So like you'd have to do casting, you'd have to do that quickly, and then do prequels of how he became Revan, and you do that with a younger cast. You do that. So
yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, no, that's one of the things as a Star Wars fan. Like that's one of the characters that I'm hoping gets saved from the old EU stuff, like him, Star Killer. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe like Marco Ragnos. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want some big names to kind of show up or at least be mentioned eventually. Now, obviously, you have to do it in a way that makes sense as far as the stories go.
Yeah.
But I guess one of my last questions I'm going to ask for every man is obviously you said you're working on a video now, but do you have any other videos planned in a similar light to this trilogy that you did with these, like as far as anything with the anything past the sequel trilogy? Because I'm sure you've seen that like Disney, they plan on making the movie like with Rey, you know what I mean? Like I think it's like 15 years later. So the idea I had with that, before you get into your answer, is from where we are now with all the characters, the only way to make that truly interesting, based because they're not going to retcon obviously the sequel trilogy,
never,
is by that point it'll be some years later, so Grogu will be a little bit older. So if she's, you know, setting up her academy and everything, to have Grogu kind of show up there for whatever reason, and he's literally some, you know, 3 foot tall in Mandalorian armor, and they, you know, either get to fighting or sparring or whatever the case is, from misunderstanding, of course, is classic, you know, kind of movie stuff. And then when he pulls out his lightsaber and he can use the Force, now she's going to be like, okay, like who the hell are you? Like, you know what I mean? And why is this a thing? And so then you have, you know, Grogu and Rey now teaming up to go and fight whoever the big bad are, which you could also go back and,
that's a cool idea,
you know, do all the EU stuff and use, you know, the Yuzan Vong, you know, do the invasion with them. That could be cool. Because, you know, with two characters that are that overpowered, you have to give them a villain or an enemy that is extremely, like, you know what I mean? Like something that neither one of them, as strong as they are, can beat on their own. So, and then of course they've filled up the universe with so many other characters from all the Filoni stuff, from Rebels and Clone Wars, that by the time you get there, anybody who hasn't been killed off yet, like, or isn't too old, you can kind of throw them in the mix, and you know, you could get a kind of hodgepodge of, you know, good and bad stuff from Star Wars to make something hopefully new and interesting. But yeah, do you have any plans to kind of touch any of the stuff that's going on now with Mandoverse or past the sequel trilogy, or like you said with Old Republic or anything?
Yeah. So the question is, do I plan on doing like a what if series for more Star Wars, right? Yeah. Yes. So the short answer is yes. Not immediately.
Right. You got to let this ride, man. Let it ride.
Yeah. Well, the Prism label, I don't want it to become a Star Wars channel.
Right.
So in order to do that, I need to explore other IP that I care about and that I think has opportunities. So I have a few ideas of what that could be and what that, you know, what those videos might look like. They will never, I've already, you know, resigned myself to the fact that they will never be as big as Star Wars, because I think the deficit between what was given and what we have, I think, was so
vast
that I think just the audience response was just so like strong. You know, there are other franchises, there are other things out there where, you know, there were some missed opportunities, but it wasn't like a holy shit, like this franchise is crumbling kind of feeling. So like it's okay, like, you know, if people respond to be like meh, like it's okay, like a big part of the content label is to just be a you know, writing samples for me personally, like more so than anything. So
definitely.
And the fact that there's an audience response to it is even better, because the louder the audience is, you know, the more undeniable it becomes that, you know, maybe they'll allow me to have a voice in commercial media. So, but even if they don't, that's okay. The technology and the tools are coming up online fast enough now where that might not be needed. We all right?
Yeah, no, my camera, my phone must have died, is what happened there. I was I was using the camera for my phone. I just got to switch the camera. Fun times.
Yeah, no worries.
I don't know if I
Yeah,
can
no worries.
do that in here. I'm definitely curious about what other franchises that you, what other IPs would you want to get into?
I'm not at liberty to disclose quite yet, but they'll be good.
I'm more than okay with that. I thought I would ask just in case.
Of course, you're welcome to ask. That's
just
okay.
in case, but trust me, yeah, I more than understand.
Yeah.
I'll say, look, I got to test the waters, man. You got to test the waters.
Of course. Yeah.
Should be coming
Do you have
up on
any
here.
that you would like to see?
Well, I mean, I'm a big, Marvel guy. So
Yeah.
that's always cool.
Yeah.
But honestly, man, I have so many stuff. Ninja Turtles, I'm always down for that.
Yeah.
Power Rangers is a good one.
Yeah.
So just as a little idea, and I'm not sure if you're a big fan of this, but I I was watching Cobra Kai. I'm a big fan of that. And
Yeah.
I started picking up really early on that they kind of thematically, especially with the color system and the character archetypes, it's very reminiscent of Power Rangers.
Okay.
Like even the characters are kind of, color typed. But
Yeah.
it's more of like a dysfunctional.
Yeah. I think we're losing you. Oh, you're coming back.
Oh no. Okay.
All right, you're back. I got you.
Okay.
Cool.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
But yeah, long story short, yeah, Power Rangers or Cobra Kai, some type of crossover, that would be cool. But like I said, honestly, there wasn't a really big deficit between any other, franchise like products versus what we could have had like this.
Well, not only not just deficits, but
just
continuations of stories. What's some stories that maybe we like but we haven't seen in a while that we want to see more of? Doesn't have to be what if it was awesome. It can be what happens next.
Whoa, man. If that's the case, just more.
Okay.
Oh man. What's something that I've always wanted to kind of see more? Another Brendan Fraser. That would be great.
Which one?
Brendan Fraser's Mummy. Like those would be great. I wasn't a big fan of the third one.
Yeah.
But I do love the first two. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another one. That one's probably my pick. Oh, as a matter of fact, every time this question gets asked about TV, if you could bring one TV show back, Firefly, Luke, do a Firefly. Give me more Firefly, man.
I'm a bad nerd. I've actually never seen Firefly.
I know
I've heard it's awesome. I've heard it's awesome.
Luckily for you, it's only one season, so it wouldn't take you long.
Oh, there you go. Did they do a movie?
Yeah. They did do a movie, so it wouldn't take you long. But yeah, it looks like I'm running out of. Yeah, they did the movie. But the marketing was so bad that a lot of people didn't even know that the movie was even coming out or was related to the show at all. It's a shit show. If you look up Firefly, I'll always call it the biggest tragedy in TV history.
Oh, okay.
Put up my technical difficulties are letting me know that we're kind of coming to an end here.
Oh, good. Well, this has been fun. Thanks for putting it on.
So I'll go ahead and let you go, Luke, because like I said, my technical difficulties are kind of taking over. And and I definitely. Oh no! Thank you for even coming, man. I can't say how much I appreciate you. I can't honestly say how much of a fan I am of yours, man. I will be watching pretty much everything you put out from this point on, man. After finding those three things, I am definitely a fan moving forward, and you can definitely count on me to be very much aware of your career moving forward.
Appreciate it.
Luke, once again, man, I appreciate you taking the time out to be here, man. And hopefully we'll talk soon. And I look forward to seeing the rest of your work, man. And I wish you the best in your career.
Hope to deliver the best content we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. And thank you guys for once again joining us in the basement. This has been Sam D Man and with my awesome guest, Luke Clayton. Until next time, folks.